Welcome. See folks coming in from the waiting room. Welcome to our September District 3 meeting. Welcome. I see folks joining. Give folks one more minute. Adam and I were just having a quick football recap. Homecoming weekend. Midtown was playing last night. Shaky Knees has pushed everything. We all work for Shaky Knees. No doubt about it. It's, next week we think is Jackson and Midtown. That's Jackson's homecoming next weekend.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. We'll give folks. What time is it? We'll give folks one more minute, and then we'll crack it. We'll get into it. And good news is it's all recorded. So if you're looking for something to do this weekend, if you haven't seen quite enough college football, come back watch the District 3 community meeting. All right. Actually, okay, why don't we 10:02, let's get started. We good, Keith? Give me a thumbs up. That's a thumbs up. All right, I'm sure folks will be joining as we go. Welcome everyone to the District 3 community meeting. We are so happy to have you all here. We got a pretty full agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about, give some district updates, talk a little bit about the unactivated supplies, and of course we'll make plenty of time for question answer. As folks who have been here before know, I'd like to just spend a second reminding everyone the purpose of these meetings is to share what's going on in the district, hear your perspective. It's not a decision-making meeting. We're not taking a vote at the end. It's nothing like that. It's an opportunity to exchange information. A couple of norms: always presume good intent. We're all here because we care about what's best for Atlanta Public Schools. Give and make space. So if you've got a question, maybe make sure that other folks are getting a chance to be heard. The chat will be monitored. I know Travis is bouncing around between meetings, but other district staff are here. So there'll be folks that can get to questions as they come up. We're going to stick to an hour to respect folks' time, and I'll put my contact information in the chat. I also have a newsletter, which I know many of you get. We do welcome your feedback, and that's the reason we do these things. So thanks for taking time to be here. So a couple quick updates. We already talked about homecoming and Midtown and Jackson football, so that's the big stuff's out of the way. Honestly, though, it is. I do feel like we're in this great groove at our schools. I feel like we're now, a month and a half in. Folks are got the routines. My kids getting up on time, getting ready to show up to school ready to learn. It's also a season where we're getting involved in a lot of facilities conversations. So we'll talk a little bit about, give you an update there. There's not going to break any news. That's some more news coming out next week there. And also, hey, it's next week is Rosh Hashanah for our friends who celebrate the Jewish New Year. Wish everybody a sweet New Year. If you celebrate, actually, even if you don't celebrate, I wish you a sweet New Year. I wish goodness for everybody. Okay, a few quick updates. There's a Go Team Summit on September 27th. Go Team members and principals are invited to attend the summit at the Atlanta College and Career Academy. This is an annual event for information sharing amongst Go Teams. You should have gotten information already about that if you're engaged in the Go Teams. If not, let me know and we'll make sure that you're connected. We've got some budget work ahead. Clearly, we're in we got to make sure our central office is meeting the needs of our schools, and so we're taking another round and making sure that is aligned. There's a delay potentially from the assessor, so we may need a tax anticipation note just to tide us over on a cash flow basis. We've done that before. It is just a mechanical process, but something you may be hearing about. And then there's also a multilingual learner college and career readiness Expo on October 4th from 2 to 4 at the APS Hub. So if that's interesting to you or folks in your community, please pass the word on there. And then just a quick word on APS Forward before we get into some of the conversation that Dr. Danzer is going to lead us through on the unactivated properties. I think many of you saw the note that updates coming out next week. So just as a quick step back on the process here, because I do think it's important for folks to just understand how we're conceptualizing this as a district. Last April, we engaged some consultants who had a lot of experience in this work to really take the district through this process with support of the community task force, which made up of GO team members and other folks, and all the district data, all the demographic data, all the projection data. And they've been pouring over that over the past, really the past 6 months. And in August, they released these scenarios. These were just different, about 24 different ways we could go about creating a system that is robust academically and also is also conscientious of our obligations as stewards of taxpayer money. So trying to thread that needle, and they create a bunch of scenarios, and the language here is important. Those are not proposals; those are scenarios. Those were a bunch of different ways that the district could address the issue. Then they had a series of community meetings, a dozen or so community meetings, virtual, in person, heard from plus a survey, several thousand folks on the survey. All of that information comes back, and what you're going to see next week is a refinement of the original set of scenarios. And so these are not recommendations either. Those recommendations won't be coming for a bit, but they are based on the information that they heard, based on the feasibility the analysis that they've been able to complete, based on survey information, community information, et cetera. So that's what you'll hear next week. There's a couple different times. I think there's the 24th and 25th, one at night, one during the day, plus information on the website. And so that takes us eventually to, we're going to keep working this process. And then eventually we get to November, where there's an actual recommendation from staff to the board for action. So we're still at a journey there. We're not at recommendations. And then the board would take action in early December at a December board meeting. And then again, taking several years to implement whatever comes out of that. So that's just the general process. We're still in the board level. We're still in receiving mode. We are not engaging in we love this, don't do this, do this. We're really letting the process unfold, receiving that feedback, and I'm looking forward to some more robust conversations next week. So that's where we are on APS 2040. And then just last note for you is early voting starts October 14th. So everybody will see some district-wide seats on their ballot, depending on. I think a few of you may see. Some of you have wandered into from District 4 or District 2. You will also see a candidate, but board seat 8 is up. And again, we don't get to choose our colleagues. You get to choose our colleagues, and so please vote for that. Cynthia is retiring, so seat 8 is open. All right, so now I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Danzer, and the reason I wanted to include this conversation in I wanted to because I get a lot of questions from folks about, gosh, you have all these assets, all this real estate. What's happening? Why do I see in my community assets not being used? And it gives me a lot of pause too. I like the language that we're moving to now of activated versus unactivated properties. We're not in the business of selling it's not a fire sale at Atlanta Public Schools, but we do have to recognize that these assets, that this real estate portfolio is yours. It is the taxpayers, it is our community members. We're just stewarding it. And so we just need to make sure that we're moving with urgency to meet the needs of our community. That's going to look different in different communities, but we need to make sure that all of our assets are deployed to best serve our community. We need to move aggressively to do that. And I like what I think this was a presentation that Dr. Danzer gave a couple weeks ago at the board meeting, and it's a truncated version. Just to give you all a sense of how the district is thinking about this. So spend about 10 minutes or so. He'll walk you through a few slides. Then we'll have some questions directly to that topic, and then we'll open it up for whatever's on folks' minds. So with that, Dr. Danzer, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Operations, although many of you may know him as a wildly successful principal at Maynard Jackson High School. So we welcome him into this role, and Dr. Danzer, take it away.
Well, thank you, and good morning. I appreciate the time to be here today. And yes, I started this role as Assistant Superintendent of Operations in July, coming straight from Maynard Jackson, where I was the principal for the past 8 years prior, and assistant principal and other roles in the district for the last 21 years. So I've been around Atlanta Public Schools for a while. Yes, to the point of why I'm here, I'm gonna, in the chat, I am sharing a link directly to the presentation that should bring you to the presentation that myself and Chelsea Montgomery gave at the September board meeting. And I'm gonna attempt to share my screen here. Hopefully this goes through. Keith, tell me if my presentation shows up. Are we good?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Let me see. What is on the screen? Because I can't see now.
It's just still the main screen.
Okay. Interesting. Let me try one more time. I apologize. Um, Content only, and let's try that. Now I'm going to.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that up now?
Yeah,
It
you're
is.
up.
Okay. Excellent.
Oh, you're muted, Adam.
Yep, got it now. Sorry, I've been leaning more into Teams since I've moved into here, and so I'm relearning Zoom, so it's good. I still have some skills. Yes, as Dr. Zeff mentioned, we are focused in on looking at the properties that we currently own that are not being utilized right now, and I'll go through that terminology in a minute, but one of the important parts to mention is that as our long range facilities planning, which we know through the scenarios that were just referenced and the refined scenarios that are coming, is one part of this work. But we also are looking forward to how do we maximize facility usage across the board. So that includes those properties that are not currently being used for schools or district purposes. And it's all tied to the strategic plan, and in particular, our goal, like I mentioned, to maximize that facility usage. We want to increase high quality programming opportunities for students, decrease the number of unactivated properties, increase the opportunity for community hubs, and I'll touch on that in a minute. And also, in doing that, help with narrowing that, really help with the fiscal part of this, because properties do have value, but they also have costs associated, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes. A few things to just point out. We have some examples of this type of repurposing of properties with current excess properties, one of which is the Lakewood Heights Elementary, of which we are working with the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation. And they're actually just out of the RFP process where proposals are being considered for what will happen with that school building and land in the affordable housing realm. So we're excited about that. It's a great example of us working with the city and kind of intergovernmental cooperation, working towards some community good. One of the situations, or one of the things that we of course have in our own district, which is an example of repurposing for district use, is our APS, Student and Family Support Hub, at the Oglethorpe Elementary building. This is a great example. This was something that actually Chelsea Montgomery, who's not here today, but was instrumental in. And this has been I just heard in the announcements that there's some events coming up at the hub. And that's the case on a regular basis, a daily basis. And that's the purpose of it. It's to provide resources. Some of our district offices are down there. The health services, student discipline, student enrollment, registration is down there. A lot of things, social work, are down in that particular building. It's been a great success, and the type of thing that we want to continue to consider. But also these types of hubs, these types of community hubs, don't necessarily only have to be linked to the school district. Perhaps there's communities here who would love access to a building or property to create some type of hub that works to support their individual communities or their kind of collective surrounding communities. So those are just some examples of repurposing. To give you a little bit more context here, there was a lot of work done in 2022 and 2023 around surplus properties. And that has provided a strong foundation to the work that we're talking about today. Currently, we have 47 properties that are unactivated. And that terminology, unactivated, I'll have a slide in a second here to show you what that means. These range from undeveloped land to unused facilities. And I'll even have a slide that'll show you where in the city those are located. And of those 47 properties, 16 have been declared surplus. And what that ultimately means is that they have been declared by the board, previous board, or some members of the current board and the previous years as surplus. So that means they could be sold if that is something that we chose to do. Doesn't mean we have to sell them, but it's just an option. So as you can see, 47 properties, it's a lot. So we have, and it has a lot of value, but there's also costs associated. First, they can easily become seen as blight in neighborhoods if they're not cared for, especially buildings that have been sitting for a long time. There's cost in terms of like dollars as well as time to maintain. And then we sit there and look at them and say, well, there's a lot of opportunity as well. So we're really trying to shift our focus to be more intentional and, quite honestly, to move with a more streamlined approach to get something happening with these unused properties, especially as we consider the context of some of the long-term facilities planning, which could add to the portfolio of properties down the line here, depending on what comes out of this at the end of the game. A lot of you have probably been aware of that. Many of those scenarios call for the potential consolidation and repurposing of current schools. So that would only add to this. So it's essential that we hold on to things, but also what are we going to do with them long term? And as you can see on this slide, that kind of shows how that landscape scenario is working parallel right now to some of the work myself and Chelsea and others are doing to start planning for the use of our current properties. And it's all for that good of maximizing facility usage for student and community good. I'm going to show you this next slide kind of shows our old approach and where we've shifted. So surplus property versus hold. So basically, prior to this, we often touted ourselves as being one of, if not the largest kind of landowner in the city of Atlanta. But there were properties that were just sitting. So as I mentioned, in 2023, 16 properties were declared as surplus to potentially be sold if needed. And that's a board definition. The definition you see up there actually comes from our Board of Education, and that has to be voted on. And then we have 16 of those properties. The others are just holds. So basically property we've been holding and sitting on. And so that's the old terminology, but we're shifting to activated and unactivated properties. So activated properties are excess properties that are currently being used for some purpose outside of Atlanta public schools. And I'll show that list in a second. And that's different from unactivated properties, which are those 47, whether they're surplus or hold, that are just sitting there without a use. And our approach to those unactivated properties is kind of five options: as short, medium, and long-term leases. The example of Lakewood Heights would be an example of a long-term lease through the AUDC. Sale or trade of land. Trade could be trading with, say, a partner like the city of Atlanta, because perhaps they have interest in some land that we have or property, but they also own some land in an area close to one of our schools that we may use or we may benefit from in some way. And so there are opportunities like that. And then potentially the fifth option is district use and that's not one that we view as a wide, like we don't want to activate properties to continue to have to maintain them necessarily, but there may be a few examples where that makes sense. Like we've talked, theoretically about like a professional learning center or something for teachers that could work. These are our current activated properties to give you the sense of the types of things that are happening with buildings. And this is outside of those 47 that I mentioned are unactivated. We have the YMCA, partnerships with Atlanta Parks, swing spaces. Those are those buildings, school buildings that we have historically used to relocate groups of student schools when work has been happening at those buildings. But we're going to be shifting away from that and try our best to really keep students in their schools, even when we're going through remodeling or any type of kind of work like that, because it's hard for schools to move them, especially unless you happen to be right near one of those swing spaces. You're moving kids out of their community to go to school, and that's not an ideal thing, and definitely a shift moving forward for us. So those swing spaces could potentially become opportunities for to activate in a different purpose moving forward. Early learning centers, 9 of those buildings are with charter schools, and then 4 are kind of in that other realm, which you can see everything from a private school to a radio station to there's actually a little section of land that we own in Little Five Points near the Bass Fields that is a walkway between businesses. You can see all this on the map that you'll see in a second. And the map is small. Go to that presentation so you can zoom in on it. Also in the appendix, it'll bring you right to a list of all of these things, because transparently, we really do want communities' help to let places know that these properties are available, and that if there are things that can enhance the different communities. Our intention is not to come into communities and tell them what they need. It's the community to come to us and help work with us, say, hey, there's this group that's interested in early learning or maybe some type of health center in an area, and you have a building or land that would be perfect for that. And starting those conversations. So this is the map. You can see the clusters where they're located, the type of property that it is. So buildings to just land. And you can see on the map, the red areas on the map are the unactivated property, so excess unactivated, and the yellow are those activated, those things that are being used currently in that chart I just showed you. So the strategies that we've been using, so the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation, that's our work with the city, honestly. And there's also another entity, the Metro Atlanta Land Bank and Atlanta Land Trust, that we have active, actually regular communication with those organizations. We have Lakewood Heights and People Street are 2 of the current AUDC projects that we have going on. And very shortly, we're going to start discussing 2 more that are coming online with the Gilbert property as well as Rosalie Wright property. Again, these are in the affordable housing realm is where we're at on that particular scenario. Metro Atlanta Land Bank, we're working with them for some of the smaller parcels for maybe some actual sale for home ownership opportunities. But you will be seeing in the coming weeks and months a refined and revised website that's going to put all of these properties out there that you can go to easily. And also we're going to be putting for requests for ideas, an RFI process where individuals can submit requests for what they would like for specific areas or specific properties. And for, like I said, for lease, for potential sale, and in our case, it wouldn't be an RFI, but we will consider what ideas might work for any district use down the line. And then partners and community hubs is another big one. But I want to, again, reiterate, hubs does not mean us creating another APS hub. We're talking about, think of a school building that a community has a bunch of different organizations that perhaps need some space, office space or performance space for like a small dance school. There are a lot of those types of opportunities, and they could maybe have some kind of centralized hub that serves a community and they work out of and they lease different parts of that building and whatnot. So these are the types of things we really are looking at. And we're doing it in phases. It's not time bound because we're trying to move with more intentionality and quite honestly faster to get some of these. It doesn't. We're not gonna get something done with all 47 properties in the next year. That's unrealistic. But can we build some momentum? Show the community we are serious about making some steps and coming up with ideas, and then sometimes momentum can get things moving faster, and that's our intention here. So we are actively working with the AUDC as well as the mayor's office, Atlanta Housing, Metro Atlanta Land Bank on things right now currently. We are going to, I said, start that RFI process most likely next month to November period. And our goal is to try to find two of these buildings that we can, perhaps partners want to look at as community hub opportunities. So I'll stop there and take any questions. If there's anything that's unclear or you need some more information about, please feel free to ask.
And so, and Keith will broker those questions. I just want to say what I appreciate. The reason I wanted to bring this to this community is because what I like is that we are trying to be transparent, put all of these properties on the website so everybody can see. And we're not open for business, but we're open for partnership. And so we're looking for what the community needs because we 47 and the number is only going higher potentially. Of assets for the communities to benefit from. So Keith, I don't know if you want to go for some questions on this before we go into the larger conversation.
Yep, you got it, board member Zeff. And so, good morning, District 3 constituents. As Dr. Zeff just mentioned, we will just take questions from anything that Dr. Dancer has just presented on. And then we'll make time later after this presentation to take general questions that you may have about anything else. And so, as we do for every meeting, if you do have a question, please raise your hand and we'll place you into the queue as we see your hands appear. And if not, Dr. Dancer, that means you did a wonderful job.
I see some questions in the chat.
In the chat?
Yeah. Can you see those, Adam? Do you want me to read them?
I see it. The Whiteford property be added to the list if the proposal to move or will be. So yes, the buildings that are currently being used for any district purpose, and that are part of these different scenarios, should that change, and I'm not making, as was stated earlier, these are scenarios. These are not final ideas. It's not the final proposal, but should other buildings come, then yes, we will be adding them into that unactivated category with the purpose of repurposing them. I would say that, any building in that type of scenario is a building that's like ready for occupancy, right? It's an active building. There's not significant work in most cases needed. And then in some cases like Whiteford, there's already partners in there as well. So, those are the types of things we will consider. And then for fields like Inner Atlanta, will leases change, develop over the years? So honestly, Inner Atlanta is a good example of a very active organization in a certain part of the city, and they are aware of these properties, and we are in communication about what that could look like. Obviously, decisions like that are not just ours alone. We talk about these opportunities, we develop plans, and then we have to get the appropriate approval because ultimately it's not my land, it's all of yours, right? And the board at the end of the day would have to approve any of those connections. But Inner Atlanta has been a good partner at Toomer for sure. And I know that they have interest in some other areas as well.
And I would just say on Inner Atlanta, they make deep investments in our fields too, and that to me they are an ideal community partnership. I think Adam's right. We got to look at the larger landscape, but our partners, I feel like we have a rock solid relationship with them that will continue.
Right. I actually, yes, I'm in conversation with them now to talk about. I will say, because it comes up a lot with Inner Atlanta, there's been a lot of like conversations on like school to school, like area to area. So I've connected with with John Downey at Inner Atlanta directly and said, hey, can you all develop, like, what is your longer term plan? And here's what we have. And let's sit down and look at it more collectively and holistically, because I think that's a better approach than kind of piecemealing stuff together if possible. So we do have some upcoming discussions about that.
All right. Thank you. We'll go to Kurt.
Uh, Hey, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
So actually, following up with Inter-Atlanta example, I'm kind of curious if the district is reviewing kind of whether their rules and procedures and land use, if there's ways to make them flexible so that they're effective for community partners. And I'll use Inter as an example because about 2 months ago, I was out at Cone, and the then CEO of Inter-Atlanta was attempting to water the grass from the fire hydrant. And I asked him why they were doing that. And his explanation was that they had offered APS to invest in an irrigation system at Cone, but were told that, well, APS would be happy to have that happen. They can't give a long-term lease to do that, which makes it non-feasible. And it seemed to me like an example where it's possible that some aspects of procedure or pre-existing rules around land use had kind of caused APS to miss out an opportunity to get a fairly sizable free investment in their property.
All right. Yeah, thank you for raising that, and certainly as I started, I've been in this role just a short time, and I've certainly heard about some of these things. I will say, at Cohen Fields there, that is something that we have recently talked with Inter Atlanta about and talk so they can get access. There is irrigation there, and we have worked through and are actually currently working through the process for them to be able to water it, not just relying on a fire hydrant, which isn't right. So yeah, we are working through that as part of our current conversation as soon as actually this afternoon. And so I agree with you. I'm interested in us pursuing and considering kind of longer term options with organizations that we know are well established and doing good, right? So field space like that not only is used for the community, but also it looks good, right? It makes the community feel better. I mean, there's activity, I know there's parking challenges with some of that, but it's still part of what makes a community feel better. So yes, we are looking at how do we that's why we want to look at it holistically, right? Not deal with things like in a season by season approval process. Are there ways for us to build that kind of long-term use? And I think Toomer is a good example of what we did there. And if you haven't driven by that field, they still have some retaining wall work and stuff to do, but it looks really good. And we're grateful for that opportunity.
All right, Keith, maybe we open it up for the balance of the time for anything that's on folks' minds.
Yep. All right. And so as board member Zeff said, at this time, if you just have any general questions or just comments that you want to raise, this is the opportunity to do so. But we just still ask you to raise your hand and we'll take you as we see you appear. Kurt, you have another question?
Yeah, if somebody else
Okay.
is ready to go, I can hold
No,
it. But
go ahead. You can go ahead.
yeah, my question is about I know we're looking forward to getting the revised version of the facilities use plan. One thing that I've noticed having attended a bunch of these meetings recently is the consultant spends a time each time outlining a range of options for managing facilities utilization other than construction and boundary realignment, and kind of runs through those and then kind of sprinkles throughout the presentation kind of ideas he's had in his head and things he's seen about ways you can use new technology or make meaningful changes in approach that affect utilization. But at least I haven't seen sort of a more robust discussion of how these options affect Atlanta schools. And I'm kind of curious, is part of the consultant's charge from the board to really catalog the range of available options for managing utilization other than construction and redistricting? And kind of is that going to be, is innovative discussions of utilization going to be part of that process? And if it's not, can there be clear direction from the board to the consultant that they should be including these options?
I appreciate the question, Kurt. And I think what you'll see next week is I've gotten a chance to take a little bit of a look at it. You'll see some of those more innovative ideas I think you're talking about to manage enrollment and create. It's all really about and we talk a lot about using seats, but it's really about building utilization. And I think that there's some really interesting ideas and some of that innovation that you're talking about. I think as part of this process, we're not envisioning boundary changes for comprehensive high schools, because that is I think what we'll see over time is that if we can create options for kids, that will help motivate folks, and that will create we want to create opportunities for kids. And families. We don't necessarily want to draw arbitrary lines if we don't have to. And so I think your push is a good one, and I think that I think there'll be I think you'll like some of what you see next week as and that's one of the reasons, just stepping back, that the administration went with this consultant, because they have had a lot of experience. This is, if you've been to a couple of these sessions, Tracy has done this before, and his team, and so they understand that you have to come at this from multiple ways, and it's not just a simple either draw lines or build construction. You have to think more holistically, and I think you'll start to see some of those ideas emerge as the plan moves through the process.
All right. We did have a question for you, Dr. Zeff, in the chat that says, similar to Kurt, what is your position on magnet schools and specialized programs within APS? Specifically, where do you stand as far as research into developing a performing arts magnet program?
Yeah, so I'll talk about what I talked about when I campaigned for this gig 2 years ago, which is the answer is to build, and I even see this in other districts around Metro Atlanta. I was just with the folks from Clayton County this morning. They have a terrific magnet school. They have a terrific IB program, and that creates options for parents. And so I'm a big supporter of those sorts of innovations. I mean, obviously, I was with Dr. Bachman a couple weeks ago at a PTO meeting, and she said, make sure that we're talking to kids in this process. So I don't want to just write into the chat like, here are the 3 things that we need to do, because we want to make sure that students and families that there's options that they get excited about, and that draws them in instead of but we do want to marry that with workforce, and we want to keep all of these ideas in mind. There was for those of you that were at the Midtown overutilization meeting, I don't know, that was a couple weeks ago, there was a father that raised his hand and said, look, my kid goes to Virginia Highland right now, but he really wants to be a doctor. And if you opened up a medical magnet program, I would pull him out of Virginia Highland, and I would drive to whatever school you told me that high quality magnet was at. And I found that really compelling. So all that's to say is we just need to continue to gather. We're still in the information receiving mode, but yeah, I think that is. I think there's a lot of resonance there, and I think you'll start to see some of that in the next iteration.
All right, and then we'll hear from Lisa.
Hi. Some of my comment is kind of a little bit related to the question that Kurt had. I've also attended a lot of the meetings, and I attended a lot of the meetings on the last facilities discussions in the past. And one of the things that I find frustrating, and if I was in a school that was impacted the way some of these schools are in other clusters outside of Midtown, is the slides that show, well, here's 3, we might consolidate one of these 3, and the inability to offer any kind of discussion points on that. I think that risks really throwing these communities into chaos. It's going to be hard for teachers to feel secure. In past meetings, or in past facilities processes, it seems like we had a lot of, here's the data. This is round 1. And we knew as a community where we were going, where we were in the process. I don't feel like people have that with this process. Following up on Kurt's comment, the consultants present one thing, but then the discussion goes in many wildly different directions. And so it's like, wait, what are they telling us? Are they telling us something else? It's very hard as a community to keep up. So I would love for that feedback to be given back to the consultants for the next round to kind of say, here's really where we are. Here's why we are presenting this now. We might talk about other things. Here's why. Maybe there's I don't know. It just feels very disorganized in the way the information is coming out. I am frustrated on behalf of the schools that maybe are looking at closures, that every meeting says, when they ask, what will this look like? How will you manage? Oh, that's a discussion for down the road. Like, I mean, it's just, especially for some of these communities that have been through this, it just feels like there could be more sensitivity to the audience as this information is being presented. I also, just a minor comment, is also to explain why the slides say APS forward 2040 or AP, but they're talking about 3 to 5 year scenarios. So maybe drawing that line a little bit more for the audience as well. So really no question, but just kind of being sensitive to how this information is being presented, because it feels like we don't know where this is going.
I appreciate that, Lisa. And what I'll say is that I've seen this process go a couple different ways in a couple different settings, and it's always tricky. I think the reason they opened up the aperture very wide because the hesitation. I'm not, what we can reflect and figure out. I want to make sure we're learning and continuous improvement here. But the idea was the consultant didn't want to go forward and say, here's the plan. And this is, we're going to give you certainty about this is the plan. They really wanted to have, there are a couple dozen different options. And so we're winnowing it down. I agree that it has been it's turbulent. The upside of it is time bound. So this is not going to be a 3-year conversation. We're moving through this. And I think there is extra attention in this next round that will go to the schools where there's going to be deep impact. But I hear you, and we hear it. Trust me, we hear it. But it is the idea was to not have to really open it up for a variety of conversations to happen, but that does create uncertainty, and so we're moving through that process. We're starting to emerge on the other end of it, but the feedback received.
Yep. Thank you, Lisa. And before we get to Elizabeth, we're going to take a few from the chat. So Melissa stated, to my knowledge, revised scenarios in September were not part of the initial timeline. Is this version coming next week expected to be the version going to the community task force for recommendation? Will it be revised again before the November meeting? I'd like to get a handle on when future versions of the scenarios will be created and shared with us.
Yeah, so I think the idea is we're winnowing it down, or the consultants are winnowing it down. So you start out with a big universe of stuff. You get a bunch of feedback. You hear from communities. You see data. You do feasibility analysis, and so it's being winnowed down. So I think this will help us to focus the conversation, so we don't have these broad, as Lisa mentioned, these broad turbulence. Like, we can start to settle that down and really focus on the conversations that need to happen. We'll revise again before the November meeting. I don't know the answer. I don't think so, but I think it certainly will be revised for the November meeting. So what you're seeing come out next week is not a series of recommendations; it's a series of scenarios. So I would, I think, and I think they're presenting to the community task force on Monday or Tuesday. I'm not sure if Travis is online, or Adam, if you know. I think is it.
Yes, I know there will be a task force meeting prior to that Wednesday and Thursday meeting.
Okay, so they'll folks. So
yeah, that meeting is Monday, Board Member Zeff.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, we'll take one more. So there was a potential security threat at Howard today, other than reporting to see something, say something, and email administration. Is there another after hours way to report urgency?
So I know there was a fire. We had a fire issue yesterday. I had not heard about the security threat at Howard. Not that I would expect the administration is managing that. I think say something is good. Also talk to Principal Hollis. I mean, that I think that is always a good contact point. And always, cluster superintendent Sofianos, Audrey Sofianos is oversees the cluster. I think those are a few key touch points. Hopefully, yeah, hopefully people are moving with urgency, and if not, please let me know.
Can I lean in there just from my experience? Just so you know, that Say Something is monitored regularly, including at night. So significant situations are shared with all of those key people that were just mentioned, principal, cluster, soups, district personnel. So it really is a very helpful after hours a way to communicate.
All right. Thank you for your patience, Elizabeth. On you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you, Ken, for leaning in on the community since you represent parts of North Atlanta and the North Atlanta schools, and we want to make sure our board members understand that their constituents may live, the schools their constituents go to, the school buildings may be outside the zones of that, but North Atlanta is represented by District 5, 4, and 3. So I want to remind people of that. And then also in your discussion about magnet schools, as someone who's been in APS for generations, we had magnet schools, we went through magnet schools. And so I feel like there's a disconnect with the history. And I would love for the district to be more open about and educate people about the district. I mean, North Atlanta Northside High School was the performing arts magnet school for quite a long time. What is now AIS was North Fulton High School, was the IB magnet program. We had magnets, and there were segments of the city that did not want that, and then we had a change and a shift. So really not repeating there were a lot of positives about magnets, but clearly they did not serve the whole city, or they did not serve the whole system, or we would have kept them in place. So really going back and explaining to the community the why that didn't work and why we moved away from that and how this could be different. Transportation was also a big part of that at the time. If you were in a magnet program, transportation was provided. My understanding is that would never be offered again, more or less, or the same way. Maybe it would be hub spots or something different. But that's really, our city has grown so much, it's not really an option anymore on the same way. So I would love a more robust conversation rather than just, here's a great idea, magnet schools, because we did that. We were there.
I appreciate that, Lizzie. That is right. And so it is there's a thoughtful programmatic process that needs to happen. I think in transportation is tricky, admissions is tricky, balancing all of these. I think they can be navigated. I also think we're in a different context now than, so I think there's just a level of urgency now that we have, as we look at overcrowding at Jackson and Midtown, so there's some urgency here. But I think the district is, and this process, just to be clear, this process will not at the end, in December, we're not voting on, and this is the magnet structure of the school. I think what Dr. Johnson has said, that these innovation, we need to be open to this innovation. I think Kurt even started with this question. We need to be open to this innovation, but I think you're right, leveraging what our past learnings is critical. So thank you for that reminder.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Our next speaker will be Brittany. Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning. I was messaging in because there was a test, a level up math test that was offered for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade kids at David T. Howard. We got the letter. You had 1 week with the letter and no information on what your child needed to study to take this test to level up. So it seems like a great opportunity, but I'm wondering, what is the passage rate of this test? Like, my daughter was told she needed to complete all of math level 8 6 weeks into school to take the test. I guess, what is the purpose of this program? And if the purpose is to really level kids up, why are we giving them the tools they need to do it?
Thank you for that, Brittany, and thanks for taking the call from the car. Look at you trying to get it all done. So I don't have the detail on that. Is there? Do we have any staff folks on the call? If not, then we're just gonna have to get back to you. Keith, do we have any?
No, I don't see anyone right now, so that's definitely something we'll just we'll be sure to follow up with you on, Brittany. Oh wait, hold on, let me unmute you. Hold on.
Obviously, facilities is important, but I feel like it's taking up a lot of air, and I think academics feels pretty important. And so I think that there are kids, I think this test is aimed at kids who were not tracked appropriately. And I guess I'd also say, why is it we have to track the kids coming out of fifth grade? Like, there's no opportunity to level up. And for folks who are listening whose kids are younger, the SATs and ACTs, you need to complete Algebra 2 before you've learned all the math to take that test. So if you are tracked on level, you don't complete that math till the end of junior year, which I think is a little late. And so I guess I wish there were more opportunities to move up. And when one like this is presented, that the kids have the opportunity to study for it.
Yep, I appreciate that, Brittany, and I'll take that back, and we can bring, again, I'm trying to. There's a lot of conversations happening at the district, but you're right, and it's a good reminder to see Stacy putting in the chat too that we need to bring. So if there are specific questions like that, like math sequencing, hit me up with those so I can make sure that we get the right folks to have those conversations here in this setting. And Keith, we'll follow up with you around it. It sounds like Lizzie's saying it's Sutton too. Just a little bit more detail on the math sequencing and the preparation. I don't want to speak. I have some knowledge about it, but I don't want to speak out of turn. And so I want the folks who are doing it to offer their opinion.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I think we got one question. So similar to Brittany's concern about refocusing on academics, is there a plan in place to evaluate the new ELA program implemented this year in elementary schools, or will the option spring map testing be used?
So I believe they're going through the ELA, and gosh, the dates are fuzzy. Adam, I'm not sure if you're familiar. Like, they're evaluating the EL curriculum now. Do I have that right, or is Travis? I don't want to speak out of turn.
They are right for the ones that they're trying through this year. I don't have the timelines for any of that, but I'm taking note to ask the people who would know.
I was on, Dr. Johnson had office hours with students yesterday, and he mentioned one of the questions that he asked the students was the rollout of the ELA new curriculum. And so I do know that all schools should have new ELA curriculum in the elementary and middle for sure. But yeah, more details about that. We'll definitely need to follow up.
And well, this is good feedback for me to make sure that we have a district curriculum person on these calls to better field these conversations. So thank you for that.
Taking chat now. Let's see. This math discussion, I suspect one of the reasons we see such a major achievement gap. You have to know about these cheat codes to get your kids ahead, and only the most connected parents learn about it. It's a major issue with how kids and their families navigate.
Yeah, I mean, this is, this feels like whack-a-mole. We had this with the gifted program, or gifted exceptional children program, where if you could get a psychiatrist, or we found folks seem to like. I think cheat codes is the right is the right phrase, and we need to stay ahead of this and be transparent about it. I will make sure that that we have. So this I'm not familiar with this current math issue, but let's make sure that we get some more information for you next time.
Don't see anything else. Dr. Zeff, it's 10:54. I don't know if you want to hang out.
Yeah, I mean, so look, I appreciate the I appreciate this is why these calls are helpful for me to hear what's on folks' minds, so I can make sure that we're getting district attention. The district can do a bunch of things at one time. We can navigate a complicated facilities master plan and make sure that core instruction is meeting the needs of our families. And so this math issue, we need to get. I need to get up to speed and make sure that we have. Make sure that folks that we can communicate the sequencing, because we know how important math is. Those higher order skills are. My kid's taking the SAT right now, and so this weekend rather, and having that preparation is essential. We shouldn't be pushing kids to have to take extra classes or extra tutors. I mean, that's great if families want to do that, but that should not be the expectation. So that's good feedback. Good feedback for us. Stay in touch on Wednesday and Thursday. If somebody can put that information in the chat of when those meetings are. Thank you, Lindley, for putting the information on the APS dispatch. That would be great. So I think it's Wednesday at 6 and Thursday at noon.
That's correct. Yep, Wednesday the 24th at 6 p.m. and then Thursday the 25th at noon. Board members, if you had that right. And then what I do is I'll send everyone out the registration links for both of those meetings so that they can register for those.
And I put my contact information in the chat, although I recognize most of the names on this call, folks that know how to reach me, so I don't. That's super. That's helpful, but also stay in touch via this letter. So if folks' hearts and minds are clear, we have our next board meeting is October 6th. Yes, I see Adam nodding his head. Special thanks to Dr. Danza for being with us, and Keith for managing through, and we look forward to seeing you all around the district, however we can be helpful, and otherwise enjoy what looks to be a beautiful weekend. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care.